Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everyone. This week, I thought I would read you one of my favorite short stories by James Joyce, Araby. So if you like my accent, just sit back, relax, and enjoy. North Richmond Street, behind Blind, was a quiet street except for at the hour when the Christian Brothers School set the boys free. An uninhabited house of 2 stories stood at the blind end, detached from its neighbors in a square ground. The other houses of the street, conscious of the decent lives within, gazed at one another with brown, imperturbable faces. The former tenant of our house, a priest, had died in the back drawing-room. Air, musty from having been long enclosed, hung in all the rooms, and the waste-room behind the kitchen was littered with old, useless papers. Among these I found a few paper-covered books, the pages of which were curled and damp. The Abbot by Walter Scott, The Devout Communicant, and Memoirs of Vidocq. I liked the last best because the leaves were yellow. The wild garden behind the house contained a central apple tree and a few struggling bushes, under one of which I found the last tenant's rusty bike pump. He had been a very charitable priest. In his will, he had left all of his money to institutions and the furniture of his house to his sister. When the short days of winter came, dusk fell before we had well eaten our dinners. When we had met in the street, the houses had grown somber. The space of the sky above us was the color of ever-changing violet, and towards it the lamps of the streets lifted our feeble lanterns. The cold air stung us, and we played till our bodies glowed. Our shouts echoed in the silent street. The career of our play brought us through the dark, muddy lanes behind the houses, where we ran the gauntlet of rough tribes from cottages to the back doors of the dark, dripping gardens where the odors arose from the ash pits, to the dark, odorous stables where the coachman smoothed and combed the horse, or shook music from the buckled harness. When we returned to the street, light from the kitchen windows had filled the areas. If my uncle was seen turning the corner, we hid in the shadow until we had seen him safely housed. Or if Manigan's sister came onto the doorstep to call her brother into his tea, we watched her from the shadow peer up and down the street. We waited till we see whether she would remain or go in, and if she remained, we left our shadow and walked up to Manigan's steps resignedly. She was waiting for us, her figure defined by the light from the half-open door. Her brother always teased her before he obeyed, and I stood by the railings looking at her. Her dress swung as she moved, her body, the soft rope of her hair tossed from side to side. Every morning I lay on the floor in the front parlor watching her door. The blind was pulled down within an inch of the sash, so I thought I could not be seen. When she came out onto the doorstep, my heart leaped. I ran to the hall, seized my books, and followed her. I kept her brown figure always in my eye, and when we came near the point of which our eyes diverged, I quickened my pace and I passed her. This happened morning after morning. I had never spoken to her except for a few casual words, yet her name was like a summons to all my foolish blood. Her image accompanied me even in the places most hostile to romance. On Saturday evenings, when my aunt went to marketing, I had to carry some of the parcels. We walked through the flaring streets, jostled by drunken men and bargaining women, amid the curses of laborers and shrill lanties, of shop boys who stood on guard with barrels of pig's cheeks, the nasal chanting of the street singers who sang "Come All You" about O'Donovan Rossa, or the ballad of the troubles in our native land. These noises converged in a single sensation of life for me. I imagined that I bore my chalice safely through the throng of foes. Her name sprung to my lips at moments when strange prayers and praises which I myself did not understand. My eyes were often filled with tears, and I could not tell why. And at times the flood from my heart seemed to pour itself out into my bosom. I thought little of the future. I did not know whether I would ever speak to her, or not if I ever spoke to her, how I could tell her of my confused adoration. But my body was like a harp, and her words and gestures were like the fingers running upon the wires. One evening I went to the back drawing room in which the priest had died. It was a dark, rainy evening, and there was no sound in the house, though through one of the broken panes I heard the rain upon the earth and the fine needles of water playing on the sodden beds. Some distant lamp or lit window gleamed at me from below. I was thankful that I could see so little. All of my senses seemed to desire to veil themselves, and, feeling that I was about to slip from them, I pressed the palms of my hand together until they trembled, murmuring, oh, love, many times. At last she spoke to me, and when she addressed the first words to me, I was so confused that I did not know what to answer. She asked me if I was going to Araby. I forgot whether I answered yes or no. It would be a splendid bazaar, she said. She would love to go. And why can't you? I asked. While she spoke, she turned her silver bracelet round and round her wrist. She could not go, she said, because there would be a retreat that week at her convent. Her brother and the two other boys were fighting with their caps, and I alone with the railings. She held one of the spikes, bowing her head towards me. The light from the lamp opposite our door caught the white curve of her neck, lit up her hair, and rested there. And, falling, it lit up the hand on the railing. It fell over one side of her dress and caught the white border of her petticoat, just visible as she stood at ease. It's well for you, she said. If I go, I said, I'll bring you something. What innumerable follies laid waste to my waking and sleeping thoughts after that evening. I wished to annihilate the tedious intervening days. I chafed against the work of school, and at night my bedroom, and by day in the classroom, her image came between me and the page I strove to read. The syllables of the word Araby were called to me through the silence, in which my soul luxuriated and cast an Eastern enchantment over me. I asked for leave to go to the bazaar Saturday night. My aunt was surprised and hoped it was not for some Freemason affair. I answered a few questions in class, and I watched my master's face pass from sternness. He hoped I was not beginning to idle. I could not call my wandering thoughts together. I had hardly any patience with serious work of life now, which stood between me and my desire. It seemed like child's play, an ugly, monotonous child's play. On Saturday morning, I reminded my uncle that I wished to go to the bazaar that evening. He was fussing with the hall stand, looking for some hat brush, and answered me curtly, Yes, boy, I know. As he was in the hall, I could not go into the front parlor and lie at the window. I felt the house a bad humor and walked slowly towards school. The air was pitilessly raw, and already my heart misgave me. When I came home to dinner, my uncle had not yet been home. Still, it was early. I sat staring at the clock for some time, and when its ticking began to irritate me, I left the room. I mounted the staircase and gained the upper part of the house. The high, cold, empty, gloomy rooms liberated me, and I went from room to room singing. From the front window I saw my companions playing in the street. Their cries reached me. It weakened me, and indistinct, leaning my forehead against the cool glass, I looked over at the dark house where she lived. I may have stood there for an hour, seeing nothing but the brown-clad figure cast by my imagination, touched discreetly by the lamplight at the curved neck, as the hand upon the railing and the border below the dress. When I came downstairs again, I found Miss Mercer sitting at the fire. She was an old woman, a pawnbroker's widow. Who collected used stamps for some pious purpose. I had endured the gossip of the tea table. The meal was prolonged beyond an hour, and still my uncle did not come. Miss Mercer stood up to go. She was sorry she couldn't wait any longer, but it was after 8 o'clock, and she did not like to be out late. It was the night air that was bad for her. When she had gone, I began to walk up and down the room, clenching my fist. My aunt said, "I'm afraid you may have to put off the bazaar for our night of our Lord." At 9 o'clock, I heard my uncle's latchkey in the hall door. I heard him talking to himself and heard the hall stand rocking when it had received the weight of his overcoat. I could interpret these signs. When he was midway through his dinner, I asked him to give me the money to go to the bazaar. He had forgotten. "The people are in bed after their first sleep now," he said. I did not smile. My aunt said to him energetically, "Can't you give him the money and let him go? You've kept him late enough as it is." My uncle said he was very sorry he had forgotten. He said he believed in the old saying, "All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy." He asked me where I was going, and I told him for the second time, and he asked me did I know the Arab's farewell to his steed. When I left the kitchen, he was about to recite the opening lines of a piece to my aunt. I held a Florian tight in my hand as I strode down Buckingham Street toward the station. The sight of the streets thronged me with the buyers, and glaring gas recalled me to the purpose of my journey. I took my seat in the third-class carriage of a deserted train. After an intolerable delay, the train moved out of the station slowly. It crept onward toward the Reynes houses and over the twinkling river. At the Westland Row station, a crowd of people pressed their carriage doors, but the porters moved them back, saying it was a special train for the bazaar. I remained alone in the bare carriage. In a few minutes, the train drew up beside the impoverished wooden platform. I passed out onto the road and saw by light and dial of the clock that it was 10 minutes till 10. In front of me was a large building which displayed the magical name. I could not find a sixpenny entrance, and, fearing the bazaar would be closed, I passed quickly through a turnstile, handing a shilling to a weary-looking man. I found myself in a big hall, girdled at half of its height by the gallery. Nearly all of the stalls were closed, and the greater part of the hall was now in darkness. I recognized in silence, like that which pervades a church after service. I walked into the center of the bazaar timidly. A few people gathered about the stalls, which were still open, before a curtain over which the words Café Chalant were written in colored lamps, and 2 men were counting money onto a salver. I listened for the fall of coins, remembering with difficulty why I had come over, and I went over to one of the stalls and examined the porcelain vases and flowered tea sets. At the door of the stall, a young lady was talking and laughing with 2 young gentlemen. I remember their English accents and listened vaguely to their conversation. "Oh, I never said such a thing." "Oh, but you did." "Oh, but I didn't." "Didn't she say that?" "Yes, I heard her." "Oh, there's a fib." Observing me, the young lady came over and asked did I wish to buy anything. The tone in her voice was not encouraging. She seemed to have spoken to me out of a sense of duty. I looked humbly at the great jars that stood like Eastern guards at either side of the dark entrance of the stall and murmured, "No, thank you." The young lady changed position of one of the vases and went back to the 2 young men. They began to talk of the same subject. Once or twice the young lady glanced at me over her shoulder. I lingered before her stall, though I knew my stay was useless, to make my interest in her wares the more real. Then I turned away slowly and walked down the middle of the bazaar. I allowed the 2 pennies to fall against the 6pence in my pocket. I heard a voice call out from one end of the gallery that the light was out. The upper part of the hall was now completely dark. Gazing up into the darkness, I saw myself a creature driven and derided by vanity, my eyes burdened with anguish and anger. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much for listening. If you would like me to read more short stories, please give me some titles in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this, like and subscribe. And Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you so much for this wonderful year.